Tamarack model was 1,600 square feet, and that's what the presentation that was given to us said, but I think he made a correction in there, I hope, for 1,000 square feet. So I guess that's correct. I have sort of a note like that. But what it did say is, I think there should be a correction. It says it would be for affordable housing for a family, but what I heard was long-term rental for visiting professionals. And to me, that's a difference. And so I would like it housing for, or affordable housing for a long-term rental for visiting professionals replaced instead of for a family. That's all.
Anyone else talked about that? Well, with that comment and amendment, I would move that we approve the minutes of the June 14th Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Do I hear a second? Tracy Miller is seconded. All those signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. So we have a public comment period here for any items that are on the agenda tonight. Hearing none, I would like to bring to the table some new business. We did get a COA for the modifications of one of our public buildings for the upcoming film. And Kate, could you give us a quick rundown on this, and maybe we could move for it?
Yeah, so we have Brian Ray here from King Street Productions, and he's going to talk about some changes that will be made, very light touches that will be made to the Butte Water Company building for the production of 1923. So he put together something for us, and then I sort of inserted it into a COA. I know that we can't really approve it today because it's not on the agenda itself, but I invited Brian here so he can come up and just kind of talk about these changes that will be made, and he says everything will be put back in place. And yeah, why don't you take it from there? And I think if you press the button there, it'll turn the mic on. Perfect.
Yeah, and just identify yourself for the record, please.
Hello, everyone. First, I just want to say thank you for having us in the city of Butte. Everyone's been very open-armed and very hospitable. My name is Brian Ray. My title is Key Assistant Location Manager, working for 1923. The building we're talking about is the water building. We are looking to do temporary modifications to bring it back to a 1920s feel. So items that don't quite fit our time period are items that we're looking to temporarily remove and give us that 1920 feel that we're looking for. If you go to, if this is the next slide, we get a little more specifics about what we're looking to do. So for instance, we'd like to remove the Butte water signs. They don't quite fit our storyline for what we're looking to do. We're looking to remove some of the lettering that you see above the front door and some of the lettering that's on the front door. All this just is for filming. We would reapply everything brand new once we're done. Another couple items that aren't quite featured here is there's, I believe, to the right of the main door, there's a security, there's a pad for wheelchair access. We'd have to remove something like that. It doesn't quite fit into the 1920s period. The filming for this is supposed to occur the week of after Labor Day, so the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it would be my proposal that we try and remove these elements as late as possible, especially things that affect the citizens, allowing people and handicap access to the building. Other things that we might be touching is, we've got a list here on the left-hand side, kind of breaks it down. In terms of paint, we're looking to refresh and stain some of the windows and doors, so just kind of give it a nice, keep it the same color palette it is, just give it a fresh, nice coat of paint. Not actual building, but meeting with Tom Loggins, we're also looking into painting the streets, because that wasn't quite in the period at that time. It's something we're working on. Let's see, is there anything else? That's about much as we want to touch of the building.
Great. I had a question. Near those doors, there are handicap accessible doors. So there is a plunger that you would hit to
That's
open
correct.
those doors. Are you taking that off?
I would like to take that off around the 2nd of September, which is the
I see.
Friday before the Labor Day weekend.
Well, that would be something, the only reason I asked it, that's kind of integral if indeed you're keeping it as a handicap accessible door. So you'd have to work that out with obviously the water department.
Yeah.
I just wondered about that, but
Right.
obviously you're aware of that.
Well, I'd have working with the water department and also working with a local electrical company to do that in a temporary fashion.
And the door restaining, there's a urethane on it now, on top of a stain.
I'm sorry, can you repeat yourself?
There's a urethane on top of the stain, on top of the oak doors.
Right.
So you're going to remove that?
We would probably remove that, apply our stain, and then probably reseal it with the urethane.
But you want it a little darker? Is that
No,
what you
we
want?
keep it the same
Oh, I see.
color palette that it is now.
Okay.
We would just touch it up with a fresh coat of paint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was my question. I didn't know if it should be darker because it's
No,
1923.
we're staying in the same color palette that you guys
Okay.
have.
All right. Okay. Great. Any questions for Mr. Ray from the commission on this proposal? Mitzi?
It's a procedural question, actually, to ask of you and to ask of our HPO, and that is the timeline for their work does not fit with our timeline for an HPC meeting, and so I wonder if we can, whatever they call it, when you say we want to vote, whether or not we want to make an exception, and then if we vote to make an exception, then we would, if everybody vote in the affirmative for that, to our, an exception to the period of announcement, then if everybody voted for that, we would make, there'd be a motion to accept the COA as it has been presented to us as a separate motion. The Council of Commissioners does something sort of like that.
Do they?
Yes?
I would be willing to, I would be willing to do that. My suggestion was going to be that we could give you a moment to look it over and then come back together and have a special meeting, but if that's something that the council does, I would be willing to do that, absolutely, if you would be willing to do that as well. Yeah.
So maybe we should have some discussion before we, or a motion to make an exception. I'll make that motion right now. I'd like to make a motion that the Historic Preservation Commission would accept an exception to place an item on the agenda which was not placed in the regular time frame for submission of COAs, and specifically it's for the COA for temporary improvements to the Butte Water Company building.
I'll second that. Any discussion on this? So what we're saying is we're making an exception to the agenda situation, and as Mitzi just mentioned to me, there was a certain timeline involved here at the end of August. So, okay, so all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have that. Now, we are going to vote on the COA, which is the Butte-Silverbow Water Company building, and it will receive some modifications for the 1923 movie. I would move that we approve the COA as presented, and that we would like to inspect it after it's done to see that you put it back properly.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. Do I hear a second to that? Tracy Miller has seconded it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, great.
Thank you, guys. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
All right.
Okay, there we go. Okay, 1923. My mother was born that year. Why don't you give us an update on the bids for the Basin Creek Caretakers House project?
Oh, yay. So that's all good news. Actually, good news this time, there's action. So what's happened is, we got the bids, we got the contract, it's all signed, and John Snyder is out there working as we speak. So it's happening. So you can actually go out and visit the site, and he'd be out there, and he would have started on yesterday. So it's happening, and he's calling and asking about color palettes and things like that. And so, yeah, so that's actually something that's I have good news to report when I write to SHPO. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, we really are kind of a model commission here for the state, really. We have quite a lot of large things on our agendas, and I think Kate up there at the state appreciates us. Okay, anything else on a staff member report method or anything that's going on before we get into this business?
Well, I had a page cordoned off here. Not a huge amount. I'm still attending meetings for the Benet Cultural Center, so that's going well. They had a good summer, successful tours. Both of the interns from Middle Tennessee University have left, but they gave lots of tours, and they raised some money, so that actually went really well. The Silver Lake water system, we still haven't received our actual grant yet, but I'm happy to say that I received the concurrence from SHPO finally, so my part is done, so that's great. At least for now. My part is done for now. There's going to be a window restoration project happening at the Jacobs House coming up soon. They're getting some bids for some window restoration. I think it's a SARDA grant. I wish Bobby were here because she could confirm that. This was actually just happened in June, and that's why I can't remember. Also, still working with the committee on the courthouse bathroom restoration project. So we meet pretty regularly for that. So that's still happening. And the plan is to sort of retain and reuse as much historic material as possible. And also John Sullivan, who's our government buildings guy, he's looking to use the Capitol, the buildings in the Capitol that have been recently restored as kind of the inspiration. So that's really about it that I think you'd be interested in.
It's always nice to hear about a toilet remodel. Really, it's nice.
Especially the second floor.
Right, some hot water in the joint would be nice, too. Okay, let's get into some new business. We have about 5-6 items here, so we'll try to make it efficient. We have a design review COA for a demo at 1022 California Avenue, an old brick garage.
Yeah, I know that we don't usually bring garages and outbuildings to you. The reason that I brought this one to you, and I didn't ask Kyle to come, just because of the fact that, it is made of brick. It's 2 courses of nice, soft butte brick, as Mitzi would say. And so I think that, it's a nice-looking garage. I'm not saying that the garage needs to be saved. It was a nice-looking garage. It's in really bad shape now, obviously. But I thought that rather than just let him sign off on the demo, that you might want to have some say about what happens to the brick, in the letter. Because it is nice brick. It's 2 courses, common bond. And it can be salvaged. And I've already asked him to reach out to Mike Hogan, and he did that. And Mike Hogan was interested. in taking it for CPR, and you know, I'm just salvaging the brick. So I guess that's why I brought it to you, because it's a nice brick garage and there's a lot of brick.
Yeah, any comments from our commission on this COA? There's a lot of brick there. It would, if you're going to palletize this, it will take some time to take those
True.
apart and, you know, chip away the masonry, the mortar, et cetera. So, I mean, if this fellow, the applicant, is cool with letting someone come in and do that.
Yeah, I just didn't want to see it end up in the dump.
Yeah, it's, Mitzi?
He contacted CPR probably, maybe even 3 months ago.
It's been a
So I
while.
don't know that he's in a rush. I mean, he wants to get it done, but
Yeah.
it's not urgent, so I think that we can accommodate.
That was my concern, is that, you know, just because, you know, we think it's a great idea for them, maybe that he had a urgency to do this, but good. Well, I would move that we approve the demolition COA for 1022 California Avenue on the demolition of the old brick garage with the proviso that CPR or any other restoration group has the chance to salvage some of the nice old common brick. Do I hear a second? John Weitzel. Thank you, John. Any other discussion on this, Jennifer? No? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, let the bricks be salvaged.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Design and demo review for 118 East Platinum Street. This is restoration work on home and a demo fire damaged garage.
Yes. Yeah, so this is a little cottage on Platinum Street, and definitely needs some work. And so Mr. Hall is here, and he can definitely speak to it better. It's funny, the garage itself has been tagged dangerous ever since it happened, the fire. So we've got some photos of that. I actually circled, I realized after the fact that it was a nice photo of, it also is requiring a new roof, and I realized I didn't get a very good photo of the roof, and in this photo you can actually see how the roof is in need. And so yeah, they're going to be doing some window restoration in the back, but then replacing, I believe, in the front. And I think those are asbestos shingles, but anyway, Keegan, do you want to come up and talk about the project? I think it's pretty cut and dry, and it'll definitely be an improvement, whatever they do to it, so.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, basically, on the exterior, I think those are asbestos shingles. So our plan is to just leave those and repaint them. And then that front porch, you can kind of see in the photo, it's sagged a couple, 2 or 3 inches on that left side, and that's holding that corner up. So our plan is to just put a new post in there to support that. And then there's like this screen door and kind of like a random window that was just sort of nailed to the front of it. So we'd like to just clear all that up and keep it an open porch. It's only like 3.5 feet deep, so it's not really like enough space for like a proper enclosed porch. So I think it'll be better to just get rid of all those random windows they have kind of tacked up there and keep it open. And then all the windows will be replaced with the Anderson Series 100. I'm looking at the photo now, I'm realizing it makes it look like we're making the windows smaller, but I was just kind of guessing on the size when I drew that, so we're not doing that. And then that front one, that's a bedroom, so to make that egress, we're going to put in a sliding casement there instead of a picture window. So that's the only real change to the type of windows that are going in. And then, yeah, new roof and gutters. And then on that back porch, we were planning to redo these windows it's just a little enclosed sun porch. But after looking at it a little closer, those side windows aren't actually windows, they're just panes of plexi sandwiched between pieces of wood. So we might end up getting new frames there. It just kind of depends once we get them torn out if we think we can frame them in. But they're not actually sashes, they're just panes of glass nailed in there. So And then that's the garage.
Are you going to tear the garage down?
Yeah.
Really? Are you going to build another garage?
We probably will build a garage
I
there
see.
eventually, but we're still kind of working on the site plan. So the
I see.
house came with the lot to the east of it as well, so we're looking at what we can build on the rest of the lot there too, so.
Any questions for our applicant tonight from the commission? John?
Yeah, I just drove by there today. I seen you guys have been working on it, so it looks like it's going pretty good. Are you also doing the fourplex right there next to it too?
Yeah, the one
Oh, okay.
just below it.
So that's going to clean up that little corner there real good. And then that lot there, you also own that lot there, that whole, pretty much that whole area there.
Yeah, the whole corner now.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so anyway, like I said, I drove by there today and it looked like you got some real good progress on there, so. It's like getting that area cleaned up really nice.
Yeah, it's coming along, so just got the windows in, or most of the windows in on that fourplex, so.
And that's just going to be residential renting and that? I mean, it's not going to be an Airbnb or nothing like that, or?
No, we'll probably rent it as a single-family rental.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the other one's going to be 4 units, the brick one. So,
Oh, okay. Nice project.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Mitzi has a comment.
So I wanted the COA to reflect that the windows in front are going to be the same size as the windows originally, so just make sure that's included in the COA. But the other one is about the, because I'm really getting tired of seeing sliding windows that are about half the size of the other one. There's one right now on Hornet, and it's really great. And also, you don't want to have to deal with the asbestos siding and try to fit other in as well. But concerning the double hung on the back, if that was in fact an opening for a double hung, then I think the COA should reflect that it will be a double hung window in that opening. Is that something that you can agree with?
For this one here?
Yes, that's the one. It almost surely was double hung at one
Yeah,
time.
I would imagine it was. So I was planning to put a double hung in there. And then there's one on the other side too, which I think is just a single pane. And you can't really get to it to open it because there's like a cabinet in front of it. But we could do a double hung there too if you, I don't know.
I guess it was going to be accessible. That would make a difference. I mean, from the outside, it really doesn't matter what's on the inside. It's the double hung. There's so little historic fabric that's left in here that we really need to preserve and restore as much of it as possible, because otherwise it's like, is this really an eligible property anymore? So I think if,
Yeah.
as part of the COA, double hungs at each of those positions, or, well, single hung, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. If you can agree with that, if we can make that amendment to the COA that we vote on, that would be my preference.
How does anyone else on the commission feel about that? We could just make it a part of a recommendation or an amendment to a motion as well, couldn't we? Okay, I would move that the COA for 118 East Platinum Street be approved with the provision that double-hung windows are utilized in the spaces that originally had or were supposed to have double-hung windows. There are 2 sides and then a rear, and then, is there one in front, or is that a double, there's nothing?
The bedroom on the side has a double hung, but
okay.
the front will have to be a sliding
All
because
right.
it's so big, I think.
But that would be the addition to the approval, that we would be assured that they would have some double-hung windows, and they're good for ventilation as well, so. Do I hear a second to that motion? Jennifer Peterson has seconded it. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Go forth and restore.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
What color is that going to be, white?
White, yeah.
White. Okay. So now we have a Schlancha sign project at 8 South Montana Street. And I think
Yeah.
our proposer is the sign maker himself. And I'll be interested to see where that brick is coming from. John, would you like to present this? And of course, you have to recuse yourself. Okay.
I've been here before. Okay. Anyway, this is a sign proposal I'm doing for Mike Potts. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be removing the old signage that's up there now and the old sign cabinets. And they're going to be putting up another new brick facade up there. And apparently, from what I understand, it's going to be half bricks. That with the plywood backing and everything on it. And because they do have a structure there with the weight and everything that's there. And then once that's completed, this sign here, will be all individual pan channel letters, and also with the graphic itself, and that's a Celtic knot that's simulating the hops. I think that's a real classy looking design. I did not design this sign at all. This was done by a freelance a person that they contracted out. And even the letter style, I couldn't even find that. That's all what they did. So what I did was I had to thicken up the strokes and everything on it. But the faces of the signs themselves, it's going to be a backlit reverse pan channel letter is what it's called. Here we go. And then the Celtic knot with the hops and that will be silver leafed on the face of it. And the letters, the Schlancha, that'll be all copper leafed. And this here, that just shows the pan channel letters with the returns on it, and they'll be spot welded to the face of the letter, and that will give it some depth, and it's also give it some rigidity, and also to place the standoff brackets on it. So, and then if we go to the next slide.
I don't have all of them. I just have those 3 on the list.
Oh, okay, that's fine, that's
Yeah,
fine. I'll just go ahead and describe it.
In your
And then-
packets, you have all of the...
Yeah, and so the letters themselves are going to have LED modules placed on the back side of the letters, and so you will not see the LEDs themselves, but they will cast a halo out across the brick facade itself. I'm going to be put 2 circuits on there so that the word that's Schlancha, I guess is how it's pronounced. There's no C or H in there, but Schlancha, but that'll be on 1 circuit so they can control the colors on that, so they can go through the rainbow colors. And then the same with the graphic with the hops, that'll be on a different one, so they have the different colors going at the time. And the returns on it will be painted black. And the letters will probably, the returns on it are about 1.5 inches. So you will not see any of the LED lights or anything. It's just going to be a cast light on that. And the side returns will be painted black. I believe the bricks that he's going to be using on there, he showed me a picture, and it's going to be quite a lot of different bricks. It's not going to be one whole solid ones, but they're all bricks and that, so. And the sign itself is probably about 13 feet wide and about 8 foot tall. And it'll stand up above the roof line about 1 foot, 1.5 feet is all.
The brick and the canopy, that canopy looks like the same size as the one they already have.
It's going to be, they're going to keep that canopy.
They're just changing the color of it.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And so they might go, I think what they were talking about is going with a black canopy on there, and so then they'll put the other trim, and then with the black returns on the sign itself.
Well, all right, and I understand that they may be wanting to do a rooftop lounge.
Yeah, they're just about have that completed now.
That is completed?
It's just getting close. Yeah, they got the
It's getting
staircase.
close, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering, with your sign protruding above the top of the parapet wall, whether or not that would be a problem.
No, what I'm going to do with that is the part that doesn't protrude above there, the roof there, will be a white Lexan backing on there, and so it'll be the same as the same facade as the bricks, and so have light stands on it, so you will not actually see the LEDs themselves. The LEDs will be flashing on the white Lexan, and so the white Lexan will just have the hue to it, and it'll also have the kickers and everything on it, so it will be, you know, part of the structure.
Great, great. All right. Will,
Yeah.
1, 2...
Sorry, there's no COA.
I'm just
Didn't get the
wondering on the
COA to
boat
me.
deal.
He was working on the rooftop restaurant, and that's why he didn't have time to return the COA to me.
I see, okay. I would move that we approve the COA for the Schlancha sign at 8 South Montana Street as presented. Do I hear a second? Tracy Miller has seconded it. Any other discussion on the question? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Nice sign, John. A nice sign, John.
Thank you.
It's going to be good. I like that brick treatment.
I still don't understand how they get Schlancha out of it.
It's an Irish thing. It's
Yeah,
Gaelic.
Irish
It's
thing.
Gaelic. It's
Yeah, I
Gaelic.
speak to a lot of Irish people, and I understand some sort of.
There's a linguist that can explain it to you.
Well, some people, I was driving through Ronan, and this guy from Colorado kept calling it Ronan. Ronan. I said, hey, it's Ronan, man. Yeah, that's right. Okay, enough
Okay.
frivolity. Let's get to the Galena Street Garage mural project.
Well, we don't have, Mr. Livermore is not here tonight, but this is a new design for a mural that's going to be going into the Galena Street Garage. So kind of an elongated bison with lots of legs. A
Oh, that's a bison?
It's a
I thought it was
centipede
like a
bison.
worm or something.
Yeah,
Those are,
yeah.
it's a bison.
It
Okay.
is. And so, you know, and so it's another Missoula artist named Stella Null. She's Missoula-based. He says that she will use the Sherwin-Williams Resilient exterior paint, and the entire mural will receive a coating of Sherwin-Williams anti-graffiti coat when completed. And he'd like it to take place mid-September of this year. So this, you know, that's the location of obviously the parking garage, and that's what the wall looks like right now. And that's what it will look like when it's done. So, you know, it's a large mural, but it's in a parking garage. And actually, his last one, I don't even know what it looks like, but a woman called and was dying to know who was in charge of the mural project because she loved it. I don't know if it was a quilt kind of a pattern or something, but yeah. She was... I don't tend to go in the miler, so I don't know what it looks like.
I would move we approve the mural project in the Galena Street Garage as presented. I think it has movement, and I think it'll be a nice addition. Anyone would like to second that motion? Tracy Miller's going to... Thank you. You're my right-hand girl. Person. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on this? I'm not sure which way traffic is going this way, but it would be good if that was going down or up one of the other ways. But okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
All right.
All right, one more, the Mary Mclean house at
Yeah.
1419.
Okay, so this project came up rather recently. Bill McGregor is actually here. He's here to speak about his project. This is a part of a SARTA grant, and obviously this is a really cool house, and Mary Mclean is very important to Butte, so it's an interesting project that he has going on, and he can explain it himself because he's here. So
Please come forward and sign in, please.
I'm Bill McGregor. I reside at 423 North Excel. right next door. So, I apologize for not getting the documentation into you earlier, but I wanted to make clear that the SARTA grant that I received, and I mentioned this in the application. Like that?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm not used to being mic'd. The SARTA grant I applied for would have, I'd be talking to you about a whole lot more. Right now, I'm just talking to you about, and this application is just about two items. The bearing wall on the east end, just behind the door that you see there, headed east-west, was damaged by the previous owners, who basically converted the original two side-by-side elements of the duplex into one apartment down and two up. And in doing so, for that bottom floor apartment, they simply removed studs along the bearing wall, and at every point, there are three openings moving east and west, and at each of those points, you can see where the bearing wall has settled. And the effect is quite visible on the facade here in various ways. Basically, it's caused that center, the center, I don't even know what you call it, the wall above the bow, above the inset there, between the bows, is sitting right above the doorway that was cut. So that support, it has been removed, and it settled at least to maybe 3 inches. As you might imagine, on a brick veneer structure, bricks migrated, and the entire, it's caused everything to deform on the front. The window on this side, for instance, the window on the two inset windows upstairs are now parallelograms rather than rectangles. They've just settled in, and you can see where the bricks have pulled away, and the picture on the left shows the deformation of that bearing wall. I've met with Larry Hunter, whom Butch Gerbrandt had recommended as a structural engineer. He did a walkthrough. He's very interested in helping ensure that what's done is done properly. And so he made some very explicit suggestions about how to prepare the reinforcement of the bearing wall and to re-level it. And his primary suggestion was little by little by little, and you don't just crank it up. So, so doing the bearing wall is critical to anything else that happens on the house. It's not about to fall down, I think, but it is, without doing that, for instance, I've been wanting to put up the stationary windows across the front upstairs that have stained glass that we've recovered or rebuilt to go in those lights. And I can't do it until that stabilization occurs. The other part of the project, and the more ironically, the more expensive, is replacing the porch, restoring the porch. And that's basically a matter of trying to make it look as much as possible, given the way it is. It has been evolving over the years. Make it as much as possible to look like what it did in 1902. As you can see here, some of the limitations, in the first place, it was showing the two access points for the apartments, the side-by-side apartments, and that stairway goes up. You can see that the structure that I live in now, next door, wasn't there in 1902, and the ground level was literally, it looks like it was probably about 4 feet above where it is now, and the sidewalk, for instance. So when the crumbling, 3 years ago, when the crumbling retaining wall, we got funding to help replace that, and when we did that, it became clear that the stairway, the original stairway, or I don't even know when the stairway was built, but it went out into the sidewalk. And to prevent that from happening again, when the replacement wall was built, we moved the stairway up to the side where it only had to lift about 3-4 feet. So, and brings it up really close to maybe 1 or 2 steps to climb onto the stairway from the north side. So the proposal is to restore it the porch as much as possible to what it looks like there, but coming in from the right instead of from the front.
So we're not considering any remediation of the sloughing masonry? Is that part of it? You went through the fact that when they split this lower apartment into one, the bearing wall was exposed and the east facade started to slough. And the brick itself is sloughed as well, is that correct?
The brick is, well, it starts as that center wall above that,
yes,
that vacant support settles down. It pulls all the rest of the bricks around it and bows the bricks down lower.
But we're not, that's not anything you're asking for, any approval for that?
No, this is just for the porch and for the bearing wall itself, so that I can proceed on the other item.
Well, we don't really see a plan for that porch, but you say you're going to do it according to that photograph, only coming on the side. Are you going to do a little railing up on top like that?
Yeah.
Oh,
the goal is basically to have balustrade and railings and pedestal boxes all the way around, just as it looks like there. The other point of exception is contingent. I've been looking for years to try to find another fluted column like this, and because the middle one's missing. The middle one was removed years ago. And my preference would be to replace it, but if I can't find it, my suggestion would be to make, rather than have that center divided, have the railing and balustrade move straight across as a continuous.
Okay. As Mitzi has a question for you.
Hi, Bill. I wanted to clarify because I didn't know if you understood or what Steve was asking about. That is, are you intending to replace the rail on the deck of the porch as well as the first floor deck?
Yes.
Or so it's for both decks?
The whole thing.
Okay.
The whole thing.
My other question is that I had looked at it, and only because I have a porch that has a sway on that the beam between the two posts. And in this photograph, I don't see a sway, but I wonder if you could speak to the fact whether or not there is any, and in fact, a support in the middle is necessary to ensure that 40 years
Structure.
from now, when you're dead, that there is no sway and would cause for the removal of that porch.
Right. I was concerned about that. That was my primary reason for really wanting to get that center column replaced. But the more I thought about it, I realized that for 50 to 70 years, that porch has had traffic. There was a stairway up to that porch, and it had foot traffic, live weight, in other words, on top of it, in addition to just the dead weight of the railing and balustrade and floor, without the center column. So, on the one hand, I definitely will ask the structural engineer for a decision about that. If it needs that support, we'll make sure that the span is adequate. Whatever is put there, the beam is adequate to support the porch. If what is there is not adequate, if again, as I say, the first choice would be to restore that third column.
Follow-up question, Mitzi?
Yes, the other thing I had was about the balusters, and are those 2x4s, or what are the existing? Because I want to know what you're going to put.
They're 2 by 2.5 or 3. They're not quite 2x4s. So the width facing out is 2.
So,
well.
So what is your intention regarding the balusters? Are they going to replicate that? Are they going to be, what is it exactly? Are they going to be? We need to know that.
My first impulse was to pull out my lathe and make beautifully contoured balusters. And then I looked at the original. I said, oh, the original in 1902 was just plain rectangular, very, very plain structure. And so that's the way it'll go.
Okay, I think when we're ready to make a motion, I'd like to make a motion that identifies the things that we talked about in here, the clarifications that there is, it's baluster on the upper and the lower deck, and all of those things. So just wanted to know, Steve, I'd like an opportunity to make sure those are included in the COA as a condition.
Anyone else that would like to add to that? All right. Mitzi, I guess I've thought about a couple of things that we've just, Good. All right.
I do got a question.
John?
Will you be providing any prints or anything for the...
I'm sorry.
Will you be providing any prints, or when you get to the part where you're actually going to be doing the construction on the porch? Yeah. Will you be providing any blueprints or drawings and stuff to show us, what your final plan is going to be on the porch itself at that time? I know it's a ways off, and I know you got some work to do, but...
I'm glad to do that. That's a request.
I just have, when I build stuff, I usually have prints and stuff, so I have stuff to go off of, and that's why I just kind of curious if your designer is going to provide any prints down the road so we can kind of see what the final product is going to look like.
So basically an as-built drawing, yeah.
All right. I would move that we approve the COA for 417 and 419 North Excelsior Avenue with the provisos that any restoration to the prominent front porch should include a balustrade and with columns that matched the existing, along with a top rail, etc., that would be adequate to replicate the original. And we would like to have that authenticated vis-a-vis our historic preservation officer, so that she can have another look at it when you're ready to go. How does that sound?
I like it, with the exception is so that long it meets, the rail meets the height and spacing requirements as per code. That's the
Well,
only thing
yeah, I would
would be
think that on a residence, you're looking at 3 feet, that looks a little bit lower. Unfortunately, I don't know if you're planning on building a new deck out there on top of that.
Yeah.
So you will follow building codes that way, so, fine. So the motion has been made.
Second?
It's been seconded by Mitzi. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good luck. Thank you so much. Okay. The modified COA discussion.
Yeah, I was wondering, well, so all I have is basically this snapshot of the actual COA. I always think that everyone's going to bring their packets with them, and I don't know if you did. I realize that you might not have. So I can explain to you kind of what I've done, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look it over. But what I did basically was I simplified the original COA. I noticed that it had 2 areas for owner applicant. I got rid of one of them. You really only need owner or owner applicant, could mean project manager, for example, someone like Keegan. You only need one name on it. The property information, the historic status, you don't need all those different historic statuses, because usually it is going to be contributing, and that's why it's here. And then the condition assessment, and in my packet, now I wish I brought one for everyone. I'm so sorry. I always think that everyone's going to bring. How long can I use the whole COVID brain excuse? I'm going to use that for a while.
We'd like to have printed, I'd like to have a printed packet. Wouldn't you, Tracy? John, wouldn't you like to have a printed packet? Anybody else? Do you want to print it? Well, you can use your phone, that's true.
So, yeah, what I need to do is, and when I was doing the whole scrolling thing, and it wasn't working that well, I decided I was going to do PowerPoints instead, but it's not as conducive to having whole pieces of paper. Anyway, I think what we decided that we were going to do was have roofing material and all the different options for roofing material, brickwork, different options for brickwork, demolition. So I have the roofing material and given the options of wood, membrane, asphalt, metal, built up, gutters, other, just in case there's some kind of a random other. And then a scope of work, so describing the proposed project in detail. And then HBO contact with the owner/contractor. So that's where I would describe any kind of conversations I had with the project leaders and any information that they provided with me. So this is all conversation that I'm having and then giving to you rather than providing you with a COA. Brickwork is demolition, custom mortar, repointing, other, and then the same thing, scope of work, and then HPO contact, so describing what contact I've had with the owner and the conversations that have taken place. And then demolition, outbuilding, porch, staircase, other, and then the same thing. And then basically, a submittals checklist like we always have on the COAs. And that's basically what I have, and you've all got it in your packets, but that's what I was that's what I had in mind. I don't know if that's what you had in mind for a modified COA, but it's just kind of like, and if there's other things that you'd like added to it, of things that could be settled outside of the meeting, then by all means,
So the only other thing I would think that there should be maybe a small description of what we kind of expect. As John pointed out in this last one, we really had nothing to go by as far as what their future plans were in paper or even in printed on, or whatever, I mean, it's a, or on your screens. That's something that, you know, the URA used to like to have design review with plans and architects and
Right.
stuff. And
Usually that would come...
yeah,
right.
so I mean, if indeed there are drawings or anything like that, it should be made clear that we would prefer something like that, if indeed there's some details that are difficult to explain. We've let some happen, we're going to replace this as is, and it really doesn't turn out that way sometimes. So it gives you, they should know that they're trying to present an idea, not necessarily a concept. They should have something that we can at least sink our teeth into and make a decision. So hopefully, this short one, this would be for everybody, is that correct? Every applicant?
I think that the modified one was the stuff that I wasn't to bring to you, the committee as a whole. It was the, you know, the stuff like the roof and the demolition of the garages. Like, for example, bringing the garage to you today because it was a brick garage, I wouldn't have brought it to you if it was just a frame garage. So this was just a shortened COA to basically give you in your packet, here's what happened within the last month, but I'm not bringing it to you because it doesn't check the boxes of something that is, you know, important enough that you need to see it.
But this would be for like when some of these URA grants are given or want to be given for a roof replacement, for instance. It's not necessarily something that the full HPC commission would deal with, or it's something that you can make a decision upon, but still, all these require a COA for review. Isn't that correct? Or do they? I mean, some maintenance doesn't necessarily require a COA.
No, for the most part right now, it's some, because I think what you've done, you know, with previous HPO is that, you know, there are certain things that were understood that were just signed off on. So there hasn't been a COA prepared. This is just to let you know that these things have crossed my desk. They've been signed off on, just to make you aware that they're happening, essentially.
You've identified it as the general repairs COA.
Yeah, because the whole issue came up that time with the brickwork.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how this whole thing came about.
Good. Yeah, I think that's, it'll be, we're trying to streamline the process, but yet, you know, some of those things, you would instruct the contact that you may have with these people, you would note that on the COA, that you say you would remind them about the mortar content,
Exactly.
except things like that.
That's what I would write down.
Compatible roofing material, et cetera.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
All right.
That was my thought.
All right. Anybody else? Mitzi, do you have any comments on this?
Yes. What I was hoping that would be part of the package that you brought to us was some language that you would typically use. So you'd have boilerplate. So, for example, if somebody wanted a TPO roof, the TPO, it would say, so that we could agree that that was the language we wanted to do, that you couldn't pull the TPO over the parapet wall. It had to be up. It had to be up to the top.
Oh, right.
And so these are specific instructions, and it's something that you would have to do every time anyway. If it was boilerplate, then you could just stick it in there so that you would have it. But speaking of roofs, we never have, and I never will, approve a metal roof on a historic building unless it is a special request is brought to the HPC. And so I would like that removed from there, because the only metal roof that I think we might have even considered in the past was not a delta rib. It was that other kind of, you know what it is, Steve. It's got a wide channel and a standing seam, and it's usually a sort of. It's just anyway something like that. But even in that case, I think metal roof should also come to us. And I would say, so the brick is easy. That's a boilerplate that just says soft red brick. This is the type of mortar you have to do. And we just like to see, I'd like to see what that, I should say, I would like to see that information at a time and say that's exactly what we expect to have. in the section. And lastly, about removal of stairways, exterior stairways, and I can't remember the other things you said. I might have some concerns about that. I'm not sure I'm ready to go there for a modified COA because I guess I'd like to see some exampple.
We have one coming up next month.
Because sometimes there, if it's one that I might have heard about before, it's, that can be a integral element to a historic building, and if it is, then it should come for the HPC, especially if it's going to be a demolition. So, in which case, actually, it'd be a demolition COA, and are we just talking about design review COAs? I mean, there's just there's a bunch of things like that I have rolling around in my head, and last but not least, most garages we don't care about, but a brick garage under every circumstance, I want to see a brick garage or a brick outbuilding, and anything that is substantial, that has certain design elements, I would like to see that as a member of the HPC instead of a modified. So I think we're talking about this whole block of really things we could care less about if we had boilerplate language to put in, and then there's some other stuff that are halfway between, and that is brick outbuildings of substantial size, never metal roof, just a few things like that. So those are my comments.
Thank you. As far as the metal roofing goes, we've approved, and I don't know if we have, but there's also copper shingling. There's several other cases of metal roofing, like on maybe a commercial building versus a residential building. I think the general checklist would alert our HPO as to what their intentions were. And if indeed you felt that it was important enough to bring it to us, that was something we would depend on you to do for us, not necessarily a mandate for every brick building. Now, this one, the staircase removal, I think this is a checklist that initiates a conversation with you. Is that correct? Isn't that kind of what it does?
No, we can remove the staircase. But the metal roof thing is funny to me, I think, because when I first came to Montana, I lived in Virginia City for 5 years, and 4 out of 5 roofs are metal. So I don't understand that. I mean, if it was a metal roof to begin with, I just don't get that one.
The scope of work would be important for them to describe. I mean, the deal is some people aren't very well describers, for instance. So I would think the scope of work should be, it says in the proposed project in detail, maps, drawings, reports, all those things to support their work need to be put in there. What you're doing here, though, is saying we're demolishing an outbuilding, and then that scope of work would be described.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we can certainly remove the staircase thing from there. There is a, generally, I guess I was thinking that when something like that is demoed, it's going to be rebuilt. But we can still remove it, certainly. And I guess I was thinking, I mean, I know all the language that you're referring to with the roof, and, I guess, the whole area where you put in the conversation that I had between the contractor, the homeowner, or whatever, that was where I guess I would put in, I was intending that I would put in, I explained to them that it cannot stretch over the parapet, things like that. But, because I know there are those hard, fast rules like that. But if there's more hard, fast rules like that than just like those couple of rules, I would like to know them. So I will put them in.
Anybody else on the commission want to chime in on this? Well, yes, Mitzi? Oh, Tracy, yes,
Just
Tracy.
a suggestion for that, being new to all of this and just kind of listening, instead of having it a document that's like a checklist, can you just have a supplement that attaches to every one of these that just has all of that language? You know, just basic guidelines. This is historic preservation guidelines, and just have that on every single COA so that it's, and then I guess if they're signing or if they're acknowledging that this is what they're working on, they've read that, they understand that, and is that where you're going, kind of?
Originally, yes. I mean, I was thinking that it would be great to, you know, provide preservation briefs and provide, you know, I mean, you don't know that people actually look at those or that they actually get anything from that, but just making sure that people are provided with the right documentation. That was kind of what I had in mind. So, yeah, I mean, I think so. But I thought, you know, the purpose of this whole thing was just kind of like to let you guys know what within the last month has happened, but that was insignificant enough, I guess, was the thought that didn't need to be brought before you.
That was definitely half of the purpose. The other purpose was that the proponent knew exactly what could be done. So if he did some brickwork and he didn't use mortar and the proper mortar, and he didn't do it in a workmanship-like manner, and he had mortar on the face, that document is essentially made available at the URA so that he knows that he cannot expect to be reimbursed for shoddy workmanship or for something that doesn't attach to the MOA. So the MOA is for us, absolutely, but it's also for the URA as an attachment in the file, so they know exactly what they have to do. There's no question that they cannot pull the TPO over the edge because it says that and specifically. So I just wanted to make that clear.
I can add those things to it, and I can add those, yeah, those things to the language of it, yeah.
But in essence, the demolition one is the one that, you know, we've had all these demos before us, and they're difficult to deal with at times. So, you know, it's a brickwork or the demolition, custom mortar report, then the porch, the staircase, how about the chimney, how about, you know, I mean, you could talk about all sorts of little things that these are all funded projects that we would be reviewing. No? Because you can go to if you're not getting any federal...
I think I was just talking about those out, for the most part, the small things that you didn't want to see. It was my understanding that you didn't want to see them.
I thought that the pressure that I felt that we were having, and rightfully so, is to be able to do it in a timely manner for URA projects, which would be design review. If there was going to be a demolition, to me, that's an entirely different thing. It has to go for a demolition permit, and once it goes to a demolition permit, I personally want to see every demolition, and that's not taking a chimney down and putting it back up, but anything that would qualify as something that would go to building codes for a demolition permit, that would not, in my opinion, be appropriate for a modified COA.
Even the garages and the outbuildings?
We've already established that that's what we've done this for years. The HPO has we've given her or he the ability to make decisions on secondary structures on demo requests. And if, for instance, tonight she brought one because of the brick, but generally you don't do that because they're not as significant. So for me, I think we should try this and see how it works out and see if it provides any conflict with our general feeling as far as how we want these buildings restored or work done. I mean, why don't we give it a month or so and see how these applicants respond? I mean, the description of work might be shoddy and not very good, so why don't we give it a try? That's what I would move, that we move forward with a general repair COA modified, with the removal of staircase as a demolition request, and that would go along with something else. And then on the metal, if indeed there are any kind of sub-notes that could go along with each one of these that you may want to refer to when the owner and the HPO have their discussions. Yes?
I just wanted to make one clarification. So on these ones, I would be doing the writing. Right. Remember how when I sent out the packet and I mentioned that we've been sending out COAs with URA? That's different. That's totally different. That is a full COA. We give them their first pass at it because they can write their own names and their own addresses and their own very shoddy descriptions of their work, and they do, and then I go in and I fix it. So that's all me. So I do all the writing on that. I just wanted to make that clarification.
That's great. I wasn't sure if, you were going to get these and, review them like an assignment. That's good. So you kind of do. All right.
That's a little different. Yeah.
Well, like I say, I think we should try it, and I think if the Commission feels that way, I would move that we approve this COA as presented and give it at least a month or so and see how it works out. Do I hear a second? Jennifer Peterson has seconded. Any other further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. And you can certainly keep us informed if there becomes any kind of a log jam with these, or they're trying to streamline it, is what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Well, my thought is that they could go out with the packet and then you can have a look at it, and if anybody has anything to say, you can bring it up, and if you don't, then you don't.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay, the last one we've got is our 53 East Mercury project on the rear wall. In our discussion of July 12th, the URA and implications for continuing implementation of historic preservation ordinance. It's my understanding that the plans that were presented to the URA did not include the saving of the ghost sign on the rear of the building. And I understand that the URA has approved that request for money, and we had John Reardon had attended that meeting, and he had brought up some points of the fact that they weren't going with our motion had stated. So the discussion tonight is what implications for continuing this ordinance with the URA. Am I correct in that?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Mitzi, you had some comments about this, the fact that ghost sign was said to be saved, essentially.
So I hope everybody got a chance to read the email that I sent and John Reardon's comments. And I wish John was here tonight to talk about them. But he became aware that a special meeting was going to be held for the URA, specifically to consider 53 East Galena. Yeah, it is Galena, yeah. It's Mercury. Okay, East Mercury, sorry. It's one of those streets we all know, it's Old Blue Range. He was concerned, and he was found out about it only like the Friday before, and I found out about it at the same time. And he was very concerned that the vote to fund the project was altered after the HPC had approved it with conditions. In other words, the URA board voted for the first time, to the best of my knowledge, to ignore the vote of the HPC, which is, according to our ordinance, it is binding unless the proponent wants to go to the Council of Commissioners and appeal a vote of the Historic Preservation Commission, which it has done in the past. But that's not what the URA voted to do. This, to me, is a demonstration of undermining the power of the Historic Preservation Commission. It is illegal, and it may, to some, seem like something that is relatively small, but to me it is all, meaning anytime we're held to the standards by council, by staff of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, and we have followed those rules to the best of our knowledge, but when another department, another agency, or another committee essentially ignores what we have done, it cannot be left to go unanswered. But more importantly than 53 East Mercury, I think I have it right now, I perceive a pattern of Butte-Silverbow developing projects that so seriously impact Butte-Silverbow and others developing projects that seriously impact historic properties without regard for the Historic Preservation Ordinance, and without regard for the contributions of our committee that are called out specifically in the ordinance, in our bylaws, and in the Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan. And so what I perceive as a pattern, a developing pattern, presents a risk to the historic preservation of our historic buildings and a threat to the integrity of the Historic Preservation Commission. The URA vote is illegal by the Historic Preservation Ordinance, and I'm going to say specifically which section of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, which is Design Review, Section 11. It says specifically, I'm just going to read it. It applies to local register properties, which we don't deal with now, city, county-owned historic properties, and properties receiving local public incentive, including infill development. There are no other opportunities for sidestepping what the Historic Preservation Commission, what its powers are. The removal, and so again, more broadly, I have to bring up the Butte Rescue Mission thrift store buildings. This is an example of the pattern of Butte-Silverbow developing projects that seriously impact historic preservation property or historic properties. This particular project was a culmination of a planning process that was begun months before, at least as early as November, without any communication to the HPC or the HPO. And the same can be said for the Blue Range. This indicates to me a pattern of denying HPO and HPC engagement at the beginning of a project instead of when it is a done deal. As I say, there are 3 documents that we have that say exactly the same thing. And I'll just quote very briefly from the Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan, which was passed in 2014. It says on page 3 at the very beginning, historic preservation issues must be understood and addressed at the local level, integrating into the local planning and decision-making processes at the earliest possible opportunity. We were denied that opportunity with those buildings, and I want the Historic Preservation Commission to make itself clear. Nobody is going to stand up for us but us. So we need to be proactive to ensure that historic preservation issues are addressed and that they are integrated into the local planning and decision making. So I know I have a lot of words, but let me just go to the end, and that is, what do I want? What I want is a communication from the Historic Preservation Commission to the Council of Commissioners that highlights the role and the value of the HPC contributions early on in a process, that requests that staff be directed to meaningfully implement the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan, and that it refer the approval of URA funds for the Blue Range be sent back to the URA for reconsideration. I'll say one more thing. We did not insert ourselves in the Butte Rescue Mission thrift store building demolition. I'm talking for myself because I didn't think there was a place for us to speak. The ordinance is clear. In anything that concerns historic preservation, we have the opportunity and we have the responsibility to, at a minimum, contact the Council of Commissioners with our concerns. And I and we have never taken that to heart, and from this day forward, I'd like to see the HPC do what it is directed by ordinance, by Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan, and by our bylaws.
Thank you, Mitzi. Anyone else would like to address this? This building has already been reviewed by us, and the one thing that obviously is not there is this preservation of the, it's an old sign that says it's a repair shop, and it's above those 3 windows in the back. And it's my understanding they're going to put metal siding on that facade. I never really got a clear indication from their architect or whatever, the reasoning why they couldn't leave that exposed. And maybe you could bring a little bit of light to that for us, Kate.
The way that they just explained it to me was that it was so warped that it was, the brick itself, the brickwork, was irreparable. And I will say that I did see the crack on the inside of the building, on the inside of the window. They made sure that they pointed that out to me, that it went all the way on the inside. You know, I am not an expert at those things, but, you know, I would have liked to have seen it fixed.
So the brick is
bolted,
cracking.
Cracked,
and they were going to save that, in order to save that brick portion above the windowsill. The brick
Right.
has to be repaired. Does it have to be repaired if they put the metal on it?
They're going to demo it, I believe, and rebuild it. That's the problem. That's
That's what they're going, well,
Yeah,
it
they're
was never
getting-
explained to us that it was a structural situation.
They're getting rid of the sign altogether, which is the problem. It's not that they, you know, otherwise they're not bolting it. They're actually, I believe, demoing and rebuilding it. It can't be saved. That portion,
Rebuilding
that portion of the wall.
The portion of the wall.
That corner, yes.
I see. Well, like I say, it was never really explained to us that in that depth. Obviously, this came about once they got further into this building renovation or the restoration. Is that correct? No. Well,
I was there
you
a few
weren't there.
days before the meeting.
Right.
I took photos, you know, I mean, I had my camera with me. I took photos of it, and
Okay, well, the URA has given their blessing to the project, and obviously our proviso, our condition of saving that sign is no longer valid because they decided that the structural was obviously more important than the sign.
they said that there was absolutely nothing they could do.
Okay. All right. And I will echo Bitsy's plea that we need more involvement in some of these things. This was it's not a huge item, but it's something that's a bellwether, as you were speaking of. And I think that the council should become more aware of what we do here, and we do have a member of the council as a member of this board, John Reardon, and I think he has taken a keen interest in the historic preservation, and I'd like to rely on him to give us the words that he would like to maybe say to the council on behalf of our commission. Wouldn't you say that that would be an appropriate way to go? And we could meet with John and maybe put together a statement. Not that we're adversarial. I think the whole idea is that what we're trying to do is keep things on in a good course for preservation. So that's all I could say about this. Is there any other comments about this issue? You know, Mitzi, keep her short.
I would like the communication to say that the, refer to the approval, the URA funds. I don't want the URA to get a pass. The fact of the matter is, if this was really a structural problem, which it may very well be, I won't say one way or the other, that crack was there 6 months ago in January, and no mention was made of the crack at that time, nor was any attempt, if they knew about the crack, to appeal it to the Council of Commissioners, or to come back before this when they realized that there was a crack and they were going to have to take that down. None of that was done. The URA should not get a pass.
Okay. John, did you have something to add?
This was one of the things that kind of concerned me back when we were dealing with that. And we were told that we weren't allowed to go into that building because it was structurally unsound and it was dangerous and it was just a horrible situation. Talking to a friend of mine about 2 weeks after we had our meeting, and he was telling me that he went to a garage sale, and lo and behold, it was the Blue Range. And I said, the Blue Range on Mercury Street? He says, yeah, we were in there. I said, you were in the building? Oh, yeah, there were 20, 30 people in there checking it out. And I kind of told him what was going on. He says, well, the building must have magically healed itself. I just kind of thought that was kind of a rebuff. But getting to the other point there, that this crack was already there, and they used the dangerous building element there to circumvise our decisions to tear them down because they are a public danger. Now with this big crack on the wall, was that not presented to us because it may have deemed that building to be unsafe and be torn down altogether? I don't know.
I don't think a single crack above a windowsill would cause catastrophic failure of the building. I think what it is we weren't totally clear of the situation there. When it was presented to us, they were going to bring siding up around but leave that sign, is what I was understanding. But at this point, they're going to, when they do repair this wall, it will destroy the sign. So that's something that is inevitable. Okay, any announcements? And any public well, no announcements, hold on. Any public comment on anything that's not on the agenda? And you may come forward, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the discussion of the COA.
Could you state your name again for the record?
Bill McGregor.
Bill McGregor.
Still
Okay.
Bill McGregor. I wanted to follow up on the discussion of the COA revisions. In my other life, one of the things I'm active in is Superfund, citizen involvement and so on, and I've been working with RMAP, and in fact, in the work on the Mary Mclean house, RMAP funded a fair amount of that process, and it occurs to me that a lot of the residential owner-sponsored kinds of renovations, restorations, are likely to encounter things that are of interest to RMAP. In other words, residential metals abatement programs, so that they look at lead, look at asbestos, other kinds of things that need to be abated in the process of making restorations. So a checklist item. That's my suggestion to add to the list.
Very well. Yeah, that's another item that you could point out probably is abatement of asbestos, or we have a lead problem. I got a drinking problem. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, folks. The song, I've got a thinking problem, too. Okay, anything else, anything further from the commission? Any other folks from the, Jim, do you have anything to say back there? Okay, great. Well, I would say this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.